Good morning, everyone. How are you all today? Another day too?
Serve Hashem. To apprentice Hashem.
Amazing.
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 Apprentice.
Kobe, you're going to be very, very, very missed. It's not going to be easy without you, but we're going to stay in touch. We're waiting for more time to learn together physically, and we don't have to. You don't have to be here physically in order for us to keep the connection standing.
Expensive brother, Acheka. My neshama's still here. And I'm not leaving yet.
I'm waiting for you.
I'm not leaving yet.
L'chaim to Kobe. A lot of success in everything you do.
L'chaim to Sha'ichu.
Bezrat Hashem.
Beginning our morning.
Amen.
So wonderful.
L'chaim. L'chaim. I already made a blessing. Hillel v'Shami kiblu mehem. Oh, most important. Any questions today before we get started?
You have any?
What was that? Admatai.
Is that what time?
Admatai is until when?
Oh,
Until when is this exile going to continue, and until when are we going to be far away from the service in the holy temple and His help? Until when are we going to? Is the divine presence of the Creator going to be hidden from our eyes? Until when do we need to have this mask between us and the Creator? We want to see His revelation in the world. We want to see His divine providence. We want to see the holy temple. We want to live together with Him. And we're with Him today. We want everything to be revealed face to face. Bezrat Hashem.
I can't remember exactly where we learned this, but I remember at some point we went over this idea that if we have some type of temptation, or if there's something bad that's near us, we should create a barrier to it.
We learned it in the Mishnayot to make a geder.
Right. And it seemed that the philosophy was almost the more barriers, the better.
Correct.
Depending on the context.
And then we discussed if there's something that you're really connected to, and you really don't want to happen, you're going to be careful. If you have a really valuable stone, you're going to watch it. You're not just going to trust the lock on the front door, you know?
Exactly. So, given this advice, my question is about the Yetzer Hara in terms of like sexual attraction to the other gender, right? It seems that in the Datim, they create these barriers to some people won't even walk on the same side of the street as the
other sex.
They will look, they make sure that they are completely covered, and if not, who knows? They close their eyes, wear an eye mask, I don't know. But not so much as to even touch. Like, you can't give a hug, you can't shake their hand. It feels, with the culture that I've grown up in, and with a lot of people that have grown up maybe a little bit more on the secular side, this feels extreme. And my question is about the Yetzer Hara. Should we create so many barriers to shield us from even getting to converse or see or just have positive relationships with the other gender, not in a sexual way? Should we be able to control our Yetzer Hara and challenge our Yetzer Hara so that we can people can just be free?
Very good question. I first want to sharpen your question to put it in its context. The two examples that you gave are two different worlds. Because if there are those that, to remind you, the Mishnah that we discussed is to create boundaries for things which are forbidden. okay? Which means, by definition, that the boundaries are not forbidden. They're extra in order not to become to what's agreed to be forbidden, okay? So there's a boundary, there's something forbidden, and then there's a boundary in front of that boundary, which means if you now go ahead and you pass that boundary, you didn't actually go about and do something forbidden, okay? But you also have to know what's forbidden and what's the boundary. So in your example, in your question, discussing um, woman who, let's say, a person who's very careful with his eyes and he may not walk on the right side of the street as a woman, or converse with a woman, or touch a woman. Those are two totally separate things, because walking on the side of the street is a boundary, talking is a boundary, and touching a woman is forbidden. That's not a boundary. That's clearly forbidden. If the woman is not your wife, or she's a nida, she's at a certain point in her certain portion of her menstrual cycle, she is forbidden. That's the letter of
Like a commandment.
that's the letter of the law. That's the Torah. So first you have to categorize what is. Those are two separate things. You can't hug a woman and say it's not sexual, although in our what's the word, in our society, that's totally acceptable, and especially where if somebody comes from a more secular environment, it's almost inappropriate not to hug a woman, because it's meaning what is now inappropriate is really what the Torah considers appropriate, for us to not shake a hand. Although there are commentaries that say, specific commentaries that are more lenient, that say that if somebody shakes a hand for business purposes with a woman, that would be permitted, and there are great rabbis that agree with that. So, let's say a person goes to a huge business meeting, and the executive of the company wants to shake the hand, with a woman that they're meeting. There are great rabbis that would permit it in that scenario, because it's not derech chiba. It's not with a way of affection. It's professional gesture to shake a hand. That's not actually touching. The problem is something called derech chiba, through a way of affection. We're not allowed to show any sort of physical affection to another woman, even to our own wives in certain periods of the month. So it depends on. These are all guidelines that you learn when you understand. But the way that it works, we learned actually also together in one of these topics, with one of these mishnahs, was how, or in the parsha last week, about how women should only go in women's clothing, and men should only go in men's clothing, and therefore that should create the environment that men hang out with men and women hang out with women. The Torah doesn't want men and women to be in a relationship where they will be mingling. And the reason why the Torah doesn't want that is because the nature is that can still bring to issues. Although there are scenarios where somebody can be friendly, and even if in today's society it's not necessarily sexual, but it still could become sexual. And if we open our eyes, we will see how friends could turn into friends with benefits, or also turn into inappropriate situations. So the Torah wants us to distance ourselves from that as much as we can, in order to not have an unfortunate situation. With that being said, we have to know what's forbidden and what's not being forbidden. You might find somebody who goes to the supermarket, and he's paying for his groceries, and he's holding his hand over his eyes and not talking to the cashier. That's somebody who's being extreme. If he wants to do that, it's his right. We don't tell people what to do. We don't care when somebody's extreme on their diet, but when they're extreme on their on watching their eyes, suddenly we get angry. If he wants to be extreme, let him be extreme. I'm not saying that that's healthy, but if you ask me, you have to say good morning and be respectful. Maybe if the woman is dressed immodest, you won't look at her, or you look at her indirectly. You just look at her. Oh, good morning. How are you today? Pay for your groceries. Thank you very much. Have a great day.
So
But
if they're
one
dressing-
second. It's very because it's very important for you to understand this correctly. So it doesn't get, like we learned yesterday. Sometimes you can say something and be misunderstood the wrong way.
Absolutely.
We have to know every person is different. Okay, some people come from different backgrounds. People are completely sheltered. People grow up in communities where, in the religious world, in the extreme Haredi world, you have people that live in communities where they're completely isolated from women, and they're not used to having any interaction with them. And if that's the way they were able to survive until now, and that's the way they were able to, then that's beautiful, because that is something which works for them, and it keeps them farther away from mingling, and that's going back to the way things were in previous generations. us who live in a different world, we come from a family, we live in a reality of life, whether we go to college or we go to school, or if part of our family is religious or not religious, we don't have to come home suddenly and start acting with an extreme, distance that could also hurt people's feelings and misrepresent the creator. Because if somebody says, hey, Kobe just studied in Israel for a month and a half, and now he comes back and he's being obnoxious, so then that's not going to represent the creator. But Kobe has to know what a boundary means for him and where he's at. And once he masters the first boundary, he'll put another boundary, and slowly but surely to take him to a place where he's strong and healthy and careful. But all this goes into the confines, all of this that I just said, when it comes to the boundaries. When it comes to the gufa halacha, to the actual laws, there, there's no way of justifying them. One might say, I'm not there yet, I didn't achieve that level yet. That's okay. But as long as you know what's correct and what's incorrect, what the Torah says to do and what the Torah says not to do. If somebody also comes from a background of not keeping Shabbat, and he's a heavy smoker, and even though he accepted, everything in the Shabbat, he's newly came to Judaism, and now he's smoking cigarettes, and every cigarette that individual doesn't smoke, he's keeping Shabbat. It doesn't mean that if you smoke one cigarette on Shabbat, you are no longer a Jew that keeps Shabbat. You need to keep working on yourself to make sure that you're able to keep the whole Shabbat. So I'm not telling somebody to be in a place where they're not able to be right now, or that, to go drastic steps. But we have to know what's permitted and forbidden and what's boundaries. Boundaries is a whole system. So we need to know where we're coming from, know where we're going, slowly work on those things and get to our place, to a healthy place where we could stand by what we. By the way, very often when people come from places where they weren't so observant, and they were in very open environments, and very often when they go to a big extreme, they don't end up lasting in who they are. That extreme doesn't last, because if you don't attain where you're at in a healthy place, so then it doesn't last. It's great to learn Torah and say, hey, that's it. I'm not going to have anything to do with women anymore, and I'm going to be super holy, and I'm going to study tons of hours every day. But a person needs vessels. That's why it's extremely important to do everything in a gradual, healthy manner to be able to come to a true, proper place where you can hold on strong to your beliefs and to your Torah, and to do it for the sake of the Creator. But we also have to know clearly what's permitted and what's forbidden. Something's forbidden, we can't say, oh, it's not politically correct. So there was a woman in the Israeli government. She made headlines all over where she met Biden, one of the top women in the Knesset, whatever, it's 5, 6, 7 years ago. And she met the president, and the president stuck out her hand to her, and she did not shake his hand. And it was like and we're talking about a woman she made headlines for being a woman who represented what the beauty of a Jewish woman is. She's professional, she's successful, she's smart, but even to the president of the United States of America, she stood by her values. What could be more beautiful than that? And it could be that even according to some rabbis, she could have shook his hand. And I'm not saying that's not applicable. That could be applicable depending on the person, depending on which rabbis they want to go according to. That's another conversation. But that's not even a place of affection. That's not giving a hug. Hey, Joe, my friend, great to see you. I missed you, man. Bring it in. It's just President of the United States of America while he shakes hands with executives. That's a show of strength and might. And that's not even the essence of the law. But when it comes to the essence of the law, we have to know. It's not about what I understand. It's not about what I think. It's not about what makes sense to me, and it's not about what's accepted in society. It's about what the Creator of the world permits and what He doesn't permit.
Can I ask where in the Torah does it give the forbidden?
In the Bible, it says, I don't remember the exact pasuk offhand. We can look at inside. Isha linidota lo tikrav, that a person cannot come close to a woman in her nida stage, and that applies.
Is nida stage like after puberty?
Nida stage is in the middle of the menstrual cycle, when a woman, after she sees blood, and until she becomes clean, which is a whole process, and then she needs to go to the mikvah, and then after she goes to the mikvah, she's then clean until the next cycle, until she receives again. Or if she becomes pregnant, then she's no longer a nida for the whole period of her pregnancy. And then there's a certain point in time when a woman stops seeing flow at a certain age. endless laws and details, but overall, these are these.
Shimon is in the Torah too, right?
That's what we're talking about. This is being shomer negiah, because it means you're lo tikrav. You cannot
No,
come.
because that's Nida, but isn't it Shimon Nagia always? You're not supposed to. Men are not supposed to touch women. And
So either the woman is a nida or she's somebody else's wife.
yeah.
So even if it's friendly, that's forbidden. Um, and this will be the general macro laws, and it goes down to many micro details.
If a woman is dressing not modestly, can you look them in the eye? Or do you look away? Or if they are dressing modestly, can you look them in the eye and have a full conversation? I'm asking truly out of curiosity.
No. You're asking
I
very.
want to learn. This
You're,
is
you're,
like
you're asking.
some cultural things.
You're asking very good questions. It really depends on the context. You know, if it's your family member, if it's a random stranger in the street, if you know that this woman is very beautiful, even if she's dressed modestly, and your conversation with her can bring for you to have any sort of enjoyment which is not coming from a pure place, then you should try to avoid it as much as you can. So like I said, not in the case of if somebody said something to you in the street and you're going to act mean, or somebody who's close to your family and now you're going to disrespect them. Your family has over a guest. Your family, it's your mom's friend. She comes into the house, she's dressed extremely immodest. If you disrespect her, you're disrespecting your mom, and you're disrespecting. So you have to know how to act. You have to know how to act. You're not allowed to look at her. You're not allowed to see her immodesty. You can still be respectful. You can put your face in a gesture of a way that you're being respectful to her, and you just try to not look where you're not supposed to look. And there's no black and line rules when it comes down to little nuances of every scenario, which is a little different. But a person also knows inside of himself. You can check how you can like, I can give you an example. Somebody who's connected to today's day and age, the norm is that everybody watches movies and TV shows. Almost every single movie and TV show has forbidden things in it. Unfortunately, that's the reality. I don't know if you guys know what old TV shows used to look like Bonanza, or all these old shows that I saw when I was a kid, and I'm not such an old person. Some of them were really kosher. There was actually even those, there was little scenarios, but I'm saying in general. So if you tell a guy, don't look at any woman in a TV show, it's like telling them to jump off the cliff. Like, what does that mean? So again, everything is a process. You can't jump, but what you could do is you could say, first of all, stop. If there's ratings, first stop watching NR, right? That's number one. After an NR, you should definitely stop watching, what's the next one? I forgot. R. Until you get to PG-13, and it's like, okay, what am I going to watch? That's so boring. I understand. It's not exactly easy. It almost seems like you're missing out, but I can tell you guys something really, really, really inspirational. You might not believe this, and it's hard to see it when you're not in a place where you're, when you're used to seeing certain things, you don't realize what it's like not to see these things. But when your soul is guarded from immodest and inappropriate visions and pictures, you begin to feel your soul in a totally different way. You begin to live purity in a different way. You begin to have a different relationship with the Creator. And you were asking me yesterday about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. This is really the power of tzaddikim comes from their purity in their eyes. And if you go to see a tzaddik, like you did today, if you look at them, the most powerful thing about their figure is their eyes. That's what gives you you know what I mean? Because their eyes are holy. As somebody purifies their eyes, the more their soul becomes holy, the more their body becomes holy, the more they feel connected to God, the more they're driven in their ability to serve the Creator, and the more they have resilience against the distractions of today's day and age. So we have to hold two ties. We have to hold two sides of the coin. We have to hold one side of knowing, first of all, where we're at practically, and not try to be somewhere where we're not. We cannot become an angel overnight. Like I said before, it doesn't end up standing. It ends up breaking. It ends up being not true. So it's better not to be super holy and not have it last, and be less holy and be practical to who you are. God wants you to be the best you can be where you're at. You have to take little steps. And this also connects to a great question that you asked about a week and a half ago about what do I do if I'm in a place where I hear and it's not so practically applicable. So I said pray for it and take little baby steps. You have to know where you're at. So on one hand, when it comes to purity of the eyes, you have to know where you're at and you have to be practical. At the same time, you have to know what's forbidden and what's permitted, and to try to take baby steps to get. That's where your eyes need to be at. The rest is just to make sure that you don't get there. All of the whole reason why we have this extra separation is not to come to the place where society is today, where everybody's just friendly with women and there's no like. So it's just like before you know it, you just make a friend in school, you help each other with work, and before you know it, you're doing homework together and something happens, and it's like, how did this happen? Well, I'll tell you how it happens, because there was never a barrier in between initially for you guys to have distance. And by the way, it wasn't a Jewish thing for there to be distance between opposite sex. This was the way that it was in the medieval ages, and this is the way that it was in the 1800s. Men, when men and women were separate, and there was a certain respect for women, and there was a certain respect for men, and as sex became a choice and everything became mixed, even to the places where there's places in the world where they don't even have a separate bathroom for men and women. You see that this is just the evil side trying to confuse sexuality. And by the way, this also creates a huge frustration between men and women, because what happens is women become inclined to, they have to be more manly, and men become more womanly, and everything gets messed up. There's natural tendencies of men and women where each one needs, the man needs the tendencies of the original woman, and the woman needs tendencies of the original man. And when everything gets mishmashed, then people are missing a lot of that source energy and natural organic way that the creator of the world created the elements in order for us to be driven to each other, and each one to give the other one what they need. And when we look at the woman in this healthy way of respect and distance, and when our relationships will be relationships of family and marriage and commitment, and not just of instant gratification and friendliness that could lead to these blurry places where being together doesn't have to mean commitment, God forbid, and being together could just be, we both want to have fun, God forbid, then that brings us to a place where we no longer feel like we need to commit to women, and then women might not need us to commit, but really in the deep part of their hearts, they want commitment, and just turns into a big mess. A big mess, which is unfortunate for the world, and unfortunate for one who really just wants to build a beautiful life with a woman, and a woman who wants to build a beautiful life with a man. And each one is lost in this craze of relationship, which very often is going nowhere, because each one is not standing up for what the purpose and the essence of marriage is made for. That's why we have to know that the depths and the secrets of marriage and attraction and love, all of it is in the Holy Torah. And although it may seem the complete opposite to see us distancing the woman and pushing her away, it really comes from respect, and it really comes from us understanding. It says, Ateret Ba'ala, a woman is the crown of her husband, and also we say Chochmat Isha, the smartness of a woman, the Chachma of a woman, the wisdom of a woman, Banta Beta, builds the home. We admire women, we respect women. If a man disrespects a woman, there's terrible consequences in the Torah. If he lives with her, or he convinces her, coerces her. We have extreme sensitivity to women. We have extreme sensitivity to it. Just today's society, there's norms which are accepted, and what doesn't go into those norms is considered off color. But those norms are based on crooked, uncentered values that don't align with the holy, pure values of the Torah, which is the recipe for a world of balance and a world of beauty. So I'm glad you brought up this topic, because I think it's extremely, extremely important, and I think that we could all learn from it to embrace the amazing values of the Torah when it comes to even these topics, and not think that, there's Torah and there's sexuality, or not think that there's society and then there's spirituality. It's all one. It's all one. Everything is one. Torah is society, is spirituality, is every single understanding and phenomenon that exists in the world exists in the Torah. When we're guided by that, we can live a life of prosperity and beauty. And even if we're not there yet, or even if we have a long way to go, we continue with our baby steps and give it over to God, like we learned together. We start off, we try our best, but we understand it's not about us. It's not about me. There's a creator of the world. I'm a human. I'm wearing a jacket and a shirt. Very nice. But I don't make decisions in this world. I can try. I can be committed. I can be loyal. I can be very, very, very strong in my beliefs. I cannot give up. Like we said yesterday, no despair in the world at all. I can do everything. But at the end of the day, all we need is siyata deshmaya. We need help from the Creator. At the end of the day, all we need is help from the Creator. Without that, we can't get nowhere, my friend. We ain't going nowhere. We ain't going nowhere. When we think it's about us, the Creator of the world tells us, bro beans, you think it's you? Let me show you you. When you know it's me, we're good. Or sometimes the Creator of the world just goes with the flow, Oh, you think it's you? Okay, you keep thinking, until suddenly you have this mind-blowing epiphany where you realize, how was I foolish enough to go about all these years thinking that I'm in control? Okay? Anything else?